What if one of the most important ways your body protects itself from disease is already working quietly inside you every day? And what if the foods you eat can help support those defenses? To understand this, imagine an aquarium filled with healthy fish that you want to protect. Now imagine algae beginning to grow until it covers the tank. If the algae keeps spreading, eventually it can destroy the environment and kill the fish. That simple picture helps explain the environment around cancer cells. We want to limit cancer while protecting the healthy cells surrounding it. Cancer is unusually dependent on blood vessels. Tumors need a blood supply to keep growing, so cutting off that supply can be compared to lowering the oxygen system in an aquarium. The body can make an important distinction because blood vessels feeding healthy tissues are generally well constructed. Think of a carefully built house with a strong foundation, solid framing, and secure windows. Blood vessels created to support a growing cancer, however, are often poorly formed and more fragile. They are like a poorly built house where a contractor has cut corners. This is why researchers have become interested in anti-angiogenic approaches, which aim to prevent excessive blood vessel growth toward tumors. But this idea is not limited to medicines. Foods contain natural compounds, often called bioactives, that may also influence these processes. Plants contain chemicals that can affect biological pathways. Some may help keep abnormal blood vessel growth under control, trimming back vessels that are developing toward a tumor and making it harder for cancer to build new ones. Green tea is a good example. Many people know it because it contains antioxidants, but its compounds may do much more. Green tea is rich in polyphenols, including EGCG, a compound that has attracted attention for its anti-angiogenic activity. During laboratory research on drugs designed to starve cancer by cutting off its blood supply, green tea was added to the testing system. The effect was striking. The tea polyphenols were able to interfere with blood vessels supporting the cancer. The observation was so impressive that it could have looked like a promising new drug. Nature can contain remarkably active biological compounds in ordinary foods. Green tea is not the only example. Polyphenols occur in many plants, and resveratrol, a compound found in grapes and red wine, has also been studied for anti-angiogenic effects. Soy provides another interesting case. Its phytoestrogens have often been misunderstood, yet these plant compounds are structurally different from human estrogen and may interact with estrogen pathways in ways that block some hormonal activity. Research has also examined their potential to reduce blood vessel support for breast cancer. Tomatoes add another familiar example because they contain lycopene, another plant compound being studied for its biological effects. These examples point toward a broader idea. Many foods already recognized as healthy plant foods may contain bioactive compounds that influence the systems cancers depend on. But this raises a deeper question. Instead of asking only why someone becomes sick, perhaps we should also ask why most people do not become sick more often. Children are usually healthy, and most adults remain relatively healthy. So why don't children develop cancer more often? Why doesn't every healthy adult develop heart disease or diabetes? That leads to a more interesting question. What is the body actively doing to protect itself? And once we ask that question, the focus shifts from disease alone toward the body's own systems of protection, repair, and defense, which may be working long before we notice any problem at all inside us daily. That shift in thinking changes the way we understand health. Health is not simply the absence of disease. It is the result of many systems inside the body constantly working to keep us healthy and push back against illness. These are the body's health defense systems, and understanding them may be important as understanding the diseases they protect us from. There are 5 major defense systems to consider. The first involves blood vessels, which deliver oxygen and nutrients to healthy tissues while helping prevent abnormal growth from taking over. The second is our stem cell system, which supports repair and regeneration. The third is the microbiome, the enormous community of microorganisms living throughout the body, especially in the colon. The fourth is our DNA, which contains our genetic instructions but also has mechanisms for correcting damage. The fifth is the immune system, our internal security network that identifies and responds to threats. The important point is that these systems are not just theoretical ideas. They are biological processes that researchers have spent decades studying. Work in drug development has explored ways to grow or stop blood vessels, regenerate damaged tissues, influence the microbiome, modify genes, and strengthen immune responses. Cancer immunotherapy, for example, has become one of the breakthroughs in modern medicine today. But there is another way to look at all of this. Instead of asking only how a drug can activate these defenses, we can ask how the body naturally uses them and how everyday choices might support them. Consider stem cells. The body contains millions of stem cells, and these cells played a central role before we were even born. When a human body develops inside the womb, stem cells help create the different tissues and structures that eventually become a person. After birth, many stem cells remain in places such as the bone marrow, skin, and other tissues, where they contribute to ongoing repair. You can see this regenerative ability in simple, everyday experiences. Hair grows back. The lining inside the mouth can recover after being damaged by hot food. Even a small scrape inside your mouth can improve quickly because those tissues are constantly renewing themselves. But the body's regenerative capacity goes far beyond surface tissues. Some organs can repair themselves in remarkable ways. The liver is one of the clearest examples. If a substantial portion of the liver is removed while enough healthy tissue remains, the remaining liver can regenerate much of what was lost. The lungs and other tissues also possess repair mechanisms. For years, people were taught that animals such as starfish and salamanders could regenerate while humans could not. That distinction is no longer accurate. Human beings regenerate too. The question is how effectively we can encourage and support those natural processes. This is where food becomes especially interesting. Researchers are exploring ways to stimulate regeneration through biotechnology, but certain compounds found in foods may also influence these pathways. Dark chocolate and cacao contain polyphenols that have been studied for their potential effects on regenerative processes. Other plant compounds may encourage stem cells to leave their storage areas, including the bone marrow, and participate in tissue repair. Some research has examined compounds found in fruit peels for this purpose. Imagine eventually being able to understand exactly which natural compound supports a particular regenerative need, such as helping maintain brain tissue. That could open possibilities for conditions involving age-related decline. The larger lesson is that regeneration is not something completely separate from biology. It is already part of our body's built-in defense system, and researchers are increasingly trying to understand how to guide it more effectively today. The story does not end with regeneration, because the body has another defense system working alongside it, the microbiome. Inside the human body live roughly 39 trillion bacteria, with a large portion residing in the colon. These microorganisms are not simply passengers. When the gut ecosystem is healthy, it can influence hormones, cholesterol metabolism, and the way the body handles blood sugar. In other words, the condition of this internal ecosystem can affect many other parts of the body. But that system is also surprisingly vulnerable. When the balance of gut bacteria is disrupted, the effects may extend far beyond digestion. One example discussed in this area is artificial sweeteners, such as those found in diet beverages. These sweeteners are designed to provide sweetness without supplying the same calories as sugar, which means much of them passes through the digestive system without being absorbed in the usual way. But the bacteria living in the gut encounter these compounds too. Research has raised concerns that certain artificial sweeteners can change the composition and behavior of gut bacteria. The important point is not simply whether a sweetener contains calories. What matters is also what happens to the ecosystem inside the digestive tract. When the balance of microorganisms changes, it can influence metabolism and even pathways connected with hormones and brain function. That is why protecting the microbiome should be viewed as part of protecting overall health rather than as a concern limited to digestion. The fourth defense system is our DNA. Most people think of DNA simply as the genetic code that tells our cells how to function. But DNA is also constantly exposed to damage. According to the discussion, Our cells can experience around 10,000 DNA errors each day, some of which can create mutations that potentially contribute to cancer. Fortunately, the body has repair mechanisms that continually identify and correct many of these mistakes. Without that repair system, everyday cellular damage could accumulate much more rapidly. Then there is the immune system, perhaps the body's most recognizable defense network. We often think of immunity as protection from outside threats, such as viruses and bacteria. It certainly performs that role. When a virus like COVID or influenza enters the body, immune defenses work to identify and remove the threat. But the immune system also has an equally important internal responsibility. It monitors what is happening within our own tissues. That internal surveillance matters because abnormal cells can appear inside the body. Some may eventually become cancerous. The immune system can recognize certain abnormal cells and help remove them before they become a larger problem. In that sense, immunity is not only an external shield, it is also an internal monitoring system constantly checking for potential threats. This brings us to one of the foods that has attracted particular attention: blueberries. Their deep blue color comes from natural pigments called anthocyanins. These compounds have been studied for their ability to influence immune activity. The goal is not to make the immune system unnecessarily aggressive, but to support its normal ability to respond effectively. Anthocyanins have been associated with increased activity of T cells and natural killer cells, two important components of immune defense. The discussion points to research suggesting that consuming roughly a cup and a half of blueberries can increase T cell activity substantially. Athletes who regularly consume blueberries may also maintain stronger immune activity, making the effect more about supporting normal performance than creating some extraordinary boost. At the same time, anthocyanins may help reduce inflammation, creating an interesting balance. A healthy immune system needs to respond to threats, but excessive inflammation can also become harmful. The goal is not simply more immunity or less inflammation. It is a balanced defense system that knows when to respond and when to settle back down, and that balance becomes even more important as we turn to another powerful food source, broccoli and the compounds it contains. And that balance becomes more interesting when we look at broccoli, another food that can support the body's natural defenses. Broccoli contains compounds known as sulforaphane, which contributes to its distinctive taste and has been studied for its effects on immune function. Related compounds are also found in vegetables, such as kale and chard, but broccoli is especially well known for this family of plant chemicals. Research discussed here suggests that broccoli can help support T cells, the immune system's specialized defenders. But there is a detail many people overlook. Not every part of broccoli contains the same amount of these compounds. The green tops are nutritious, but the stems may contain roughly twice as much sulforaphane. So when you prepare broccoli, throwing the stems away may mean discarding part of what makes the vegetable valuable. You do not have to eat the stems raw. They can be cooked, sliced, sautéed, or blended into soup. One approach is to combine broccoli stems with vegetable stock and herbs such as oregano to create a soup that is both practical and flavorful. The point is not to turn broccoli into a miracle food, but to make full use of the vegetable rather than discarding a useful part. There is an even more concentrated option: broccoli sprouts. These are young broccoli plants, only a few days old. According to the research discussed here, broccoli sprouts can contain dramatically higher levels of sulforaphane than mature broccoli, with the transcript describing amounts that can be around 100 times greater. That difference is one reason researchers have become interested in these tiny sprouts. One study looked at healthy young adults receiving a flu vaccine. The participants were given the vaccine along with a drink made from broccoli sprouts, and the reported immune response was dramatically higher, described in the discussion as being increased by about 22 times. The finding is interesting because it suggests that certain plant compounds may influence how strongly the immune system responds without pushing the body toward greater inflammation. And that brings us back to the bigger picture. The body's defenses are not controlled by one organ, one nutrient, or one food. They operate as an interconnected network. Blood vessels supply healthy tissues while abnormal vessel growth can support tumors. Stem cells help repair and regenerate tissues. The microbiome interacts with metabolism and other body systems. DNA repair mechanisms correct countless errors that occur naturally in our cells. And the immune system constantly monitors both the outside world and the inside of the body. Food can interact with these systems through bioactive compounds naturally present in plants. Green tea provides EGCG. Soy contains phytoestrogens. Tomatoes provide lycopene. Blueberries contain anthocyanins. Broccoli and its sprouts provide sulforaphane-related compounds. None of these foods should be presented as a replacement for medical treatment, and none should be treated as a guaranteed way to prevent or cure cancer. Their value lies in the broader pattern. A diet rich in diverse plant foods can provide compounds that may support defense mechanisms. The most important lesson is therefore not to search for one perfect food. It is to understand that health is an active process. Your body is constantly repairing, regulating, monitoring, and defending itself, often without you noticing. Supporting those systems through sensible nutrition and healthy habits gives them the environment they need to keep doing their work. If you found this explanation useful, share it with someone who would benefit from understanding how the body's natural defense systems work. Subscribe for more evidence-based health and nutrition content, and stay tuned for the next video.